Hey guys, welcome to my podcast, The Kandis Show. This is our second episode, and today we talked to my longtime friend, Michael Washington Brown, and his journey in life and how that led him to what he's doing today, his one-man show that he has written and produced. And it's an exciting journey. I hope you enjoy it. Well, Michael, thanks so much for joining me on this podcast. You know, we've been friends for now.
We figured out what, 16, what did we say?
16 years.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And we're getting younger.
Are we?
I think so. You haven't changed. You haven't changed a bit.
Oh, okay. Well, you
Longer
either.
hair,
Yeah, you either.
My hair's shorter, but that's about it.
I think my hair is actually real now.
No, I think when I first met you, your hair was short.
Oh, was
It was cropped.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like
cropped. I like
super
that.
blonde.
Yeah, and then I got the extensions, so
Yeah.
now I have the real. It's just
Yeah,
real.
It's a real deal.
It's a real deal.
There you go. It takes us
Yeah.
a while to figure it out. It's okay.
Awesome. You're such an inspiration. You've done so many things in your life.
Trying to figure myself out, I guess. You know, it's. I think growing up is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, regardless of where you grew up or what your family's background is or how much money. I think everybody has their individual challenges, and regardless of what you're given, you still have to figure out what these tools are and how to use it and how does it apply to yourself. And so there's two ways, I think, to look at things. You look at things as, I messed up, I shouldn't have done that. Or, okay, I know that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But every single thing you do, there's always something that comes from it. That if you're paying attention,
Yeah.
it's going to lead you to, your next endeavor. And I think sometimes it's never clear in the moment what that thing is. I think it takes time
Reflection.
to reflect and look back and that's why I did that. And sometimes you might not even be able to connect the dots, but
Till later.
Till much later.
Yeah.
But as long as you're actually being more truthful about who you are, and I think also as I look back on my life and the things I've done thus far, I think I was truthful in those individual moments. The things I was aspiring to were things that were meaningful to me.
Yeah.
So I don't have any regrets about them. But where I am today has always been a simmering. It's like putting a slow boil. It's always been there. And as I look back today, I realize, sure we get into this, but I didn't have the maturity then to be able to be where I am today, doing what I'm doing today.
Well, I think it takes all those experiences that you've had. It leads us to where we are.
Absolutely right.
So even like inside of failure, right? Those are our biggest opportunities to really, how fast can you get back up?
Yeah.
How fast can you learn the lesson that was there
Right.
and apply it and just move forward, right?
I think the only mistakes personally are when you keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Well,
right?
that's
the mistake.
Yeah, it's the definition of insanity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you can take something from it,
Yeah.
or even in the moment, just say, okay, I don't quite know why this happened,
Yeah.
but I know that there's something going to come from it. Even just a recognition of that, I think, eventually will lead you to an aha. My thing is, I feel like sometimes we're living in these peephole moments.
Where you don't have clarity, you mean? Like you don't see
you
everything.
only see this.
Yeah.
And that's all you're meant to see. And sometimes I think that's actually for our protection.
Probably.
Because we're not ready to absorb everything else that's around us.
Yeah.
And so I've learned I try to learn to just be okay with that. Okay, this is all I can see right now.
Yeah.
And this is all I can deal with. And as long as I'm still waking up every day,
Moving forward, right?
Moving forward, good attitude, and a sense of purpose, then eventually maybe that other stuff that's blurred will eventually come into focus. But I'm not supposed to know what that is right now, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
You have to, surrender and not let my ego, because that's when
ego.
I've been at my worst with my ego. Holy moly.
I mean, there's a good side to ego, but I think a lot of it is,
Well, yeah, when you keep it in check,
Yeah.
when you say shut up, because it's like this annoying thing
It's that voice.
Yeah, shh.
that soft voice. Like, what? Listening. Michael, tell me about like one of your biggest failures, and then, kind of what you really gained from that failure.
Wow.
And
Well, first of all, I would never frame it as a failure.
well,
For me.
yeah, okay. What do you want to call it?
That's a good question. I mean, again, I think comes back to that whole concept of a failure is when you keep repeating the same thing. So
Okay.
for me, my chapter of my life
Setback
being in the
or-
restaurant business,
Yes, you were.
was a really humbling experience for me. It was driven by desire, passion, and
To
some
what?
ego to open the restaurant, to be in the business, to be an owner. I saw an opportunity to share a cuisine and to share Caribbean cuisine and to share history connected to my family's history, food and, environment and conversations that are embedded in me. And so I looked to the marketplace and thought that there was a huge opportunity to fill a need that was not being fulfilled. I don't know if that was opportunity or ego, but it doesn't matter,
Regardless, yeah.
So get up on its feet, etc. And to be honest with you, it was like being on the back of a wild bull
Yeah.
and never quite being able to have my butt on the seat. Like, I was constantly being tossed up about, and you're trying to maintain that. I'm okay, but I'm not okay. And
This says you're okay.
Yeah,
On the
no,
inside, you're like
absolutely
dying.
And I went through so many ups and downs. Sometimes business was amazing, and then it was quiet, and you start, why is it quiet? And you start going down the street to look at your neighbors' restaurants, and they're busy, and like, why am I not busy? And so you start to internalize that.
Yeah.
And our dear friend, who we just mentioned, Alfida,
Yeah.
because you guys were next door to me at the time.
Yes. Yes.
In your former life. And I remember Alfida said, how's business? And clearly no one was in the restaurant. I said, business is not good. And she said, don't ever say that. Don't ever say what you don't want.
Yep.
She said, when somebody comes to you, say, it's picking up. It's getting better.
Yeah.
And nobody ever said that to me. I didn't even comprehend how meaningful that little piece of information was. It was a state of mind.
Yes.
Right?
Everything's a state of mind.
State of mind. But I wasn't aware of it.
Not at that point. Now,
way.
today, you are.
Yeah. I'd like to think I am. Yeah. Way more than I was then.
So, do you feel like the restaurant business was the most challenging thing you've done?
Yeah, I think I definitely got my butt handed to me.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, so I opened 2 restaurants, but the first one where I met you, when finally I was just drowning, essentially, the business was never stable enough to be successful. If I look at what was successful, well, I got to meet amazing people who I still know and love and care about.
Yeah.
I got to feed people.
Yeah.
This restaurant had a tremendous amount of, energy,
love.
People congregated. I felt supported. And to be honest with you, from a capital standpoint, right when the restaurant was actually starting to find its feet, I had no more money. I just couldn't sustain being in that location. It was too expensive.
Yeah.
And so
Is that when you moved to Tempe?
moved to Tempe, but it wasn't a right away. It literally had to close.
Yeah.
And I was actually going through the beginning of a divorce at that time. So I remember one day going back to the restaurant and it's shut up, fish tank's there. Just a fish tank. The only living presence was this fish tank.
Aww.
I'm looking around at everything that it took for me to put this together. And all that had been left in the carnage as a result. And this is when I knew that something was wrong. First of all, nobody was there to help me.
Yeah, you had no support.
For all the free drinks and the food and this, that, the other,
Yeah.
nobody was there to say, do you need some help? But I was also still full of ego, so I didn't ask for help.
Yes. It is hard to ask for help
that's
in
part
life.
of my fault too. Yeah, it is.
As like entrepreneurs, I think
Yeah.
we think we can just take on
We
the
can do it,
world. We
yeah.
can just do it. I'll just do it and I'll do it better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But at some point you have to realize
mistake.
right.
Because you just end up wearing yourself out. That's where I was.
Yeah.
And I remember recognizing that the restaurant, A, is now closed. B, I needed a job. I had no income, which meant for me at the time, I had to go back to working in the restaurant. So one day I'm an owner and now I'm going to be waiting tables.
Oh.
And then I have to run into people
Oh,
that
ego. Back to ego. Oh.
I just, right there.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, the most shocking thing for me was realizing that unbeknownst to me, my identity had been tied up in the restaurant. So because the restaurant closed,
You felt.
I was closed. I literally thought that everything that I represented was entwined in that restaurant. And at that time in my life, it was, because very few things were working except for when people came to the restaurant and had a good time and so on and so forth. So in those moments, I felt worthy.
Yeah.
But
Did you realize like it at
Didn't
that
know.
moment that I'm not tied to this restaurant? I
No.
am not my business.
No, it took. Even though
You
that
know?
was a recognition in that moment, it didn't register.
Yes.
I just knew I didn't like the way I felt, but I didn't know why I felt that way. But the ego was like, no, you're fine. We're gonna, you're
Well,
gonna get this back
and
up
that's
and
the
going.
good part of the ego that we do need.
Yeah.
We need that to
To
keep
get up and
going.
go.
Yes,
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
up from the.
But sometimes, and I don't know
From
how
the
you
challenge.
feel, but sometimes don't you think that when something occurs, rather than create or propel action, sometimes there's a moment to just sit and be still
Yes.
and say, okay, what do I take from this?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in that position because I was blameless.
Yeah.
I forced certain outcomes, which brought me to my knees, literally.
Well, sometimes we have to get to that
And,
point.
and that's
you
what
know?
I needed.
Yeah.
And that was only part one of that. There was a part two that I still had to be brought to my knees, and it was literally a point of surrender. And then it was like, I get the message. I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not equipped to do this alone.
Interesting that I can't do this alone, but now you've produced a one-man show.
I know, isn't that weird?
That's
But,
weird.
you know, I say something. Although I have this one-man show, I
Yeah.
don't travel alone.
Oh, really?
No. And I mean that in terms of my faith.
Yes.
My
Oh,
spiritual,
okay.
you know,
Yes.
my faith in God.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
But also because I'm doing something that feels right and is right, the right people have just come into play.
Don't
So
you love that
even
too?
though I'm up front on stage, you don't think there's somebody behind running the lights and the sound,
Of
and
course.
there's people who've created the visuals and so on and so forth, and people like you say, hey, you know, I want to share your story or this, that, the other. Things just come together. And I think that's what happens when you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Because there's room for everybody.
In the right state of mind.
Absolutely.
People show up on your path.
They show
like,
up
exactly who
and,
you
and
need.
you
right?
have that. You have that knowledge of how am I going to get this? How am I going to figure this out? And all of a sudden, a phone rings or something happens. You're like, oh, okay. And then you're like, okay, yes, I'm right where I'm supposed to be because things are falling into place. And I realize that it's not about me making everything happen. And as a matter of fact, when I work with people now in this production, even when I go to different cities and perform with different light and sound, I say, listen, this is what we've done up until now, but I want to
Open.
see what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the lighting and so on and so forth? I'm very open to what you
Well,
want
they're
to
the
bring to the
expert,
table.
right? You're
Yeah.
the performer,
Yeah,
the writer.
yeah. But what's nice about that process, Candy, is that it then gives them ownership, not only of their talents, but it allows their vision to be a part of it. So it becomes an ensemble, even though it's just me up front.
Well, they're
You
part
know,
of it now, right?
Of course.
We all want to be part of something
I don't
as
want to pay
humans.
somebody just to run lights and sound. I want
Yeah.
somebody that
Passionate.
they see something and they say, hey, why don't we try this? Sure, let's try it. Because it's only going to make it better.
How'd you get to where you're at right now? This like whole acting side
Well,
to you.
that again, that goes back to my former life. So before I met you and I was living in San Francisco, I
Okay.
was acting.
Oh, okay.
And I was loving it. I mean, it was like breathing to me. And it was something about doing it in that way that felt very natural. And I felt like I had a really good understanding of the principles. And, you know, so I went to a scene study class and watched, you know, with a teacher, and he would give us assignments to work with other acting students. Some we would take away. We'd have to rehearse it and bring back the scene. But even as I was watching other people's scenes, I would see things and instinctively think, oh, it should be like that, or it could be this way, or this, that, the other. And it just felt so, I felt so at ease with that. And very quickly, the teacher said, he said, you know, if you're coming here just to do these scenes and learn these monologues, but you're not actually going out and auditioning, you're wasting your time. But if that's what you want to do, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but if the purpose is for you to actually go and get hired, you have to take these experiences out into the world, because what you'll learn on one show will be more than I can teach you in any classes. Mm-hmm. And I got that. So, all right. So I got my monologues and went out and started auditioning. And I think within the first couple of auditions, I got hired or cast in local shows in San Francisco. And then when I tasted that, I was like, oh,
This is fun.
this is it. Because you have the ensemble experience, you know,
Yeah.
you meet people you've never met before, and you know, you have your table read of the script, and you start to hear these characters come to life in the way that these other people have interpreted these characters, and then you become a family. You know, over the rehearsal process of a 2, 3, 4 week process, you're rehearsing, and then your performances, and then you just all these experiences get bled in, and you walk away from it a richer person. You know, from the experience of it, because people are sharing no matter what their capabilities that are, they're passionate about what they're doing when they're on stage. Otherwise, why are you going to be on stage? You don't go on stage to hide.
No.
You go to shine in the best way you know how to shine. And so doing that, so I had been on this trajectory in San Francisco, and then life took me a different way. I met, my daughter's mom and fell in love. But actually, right before that, I went to New York as well. I went to New York.
Okay.
Because I got an internship at the Ensemble Studio Theater, which is an off-Broadway theater company, and I was enjoying it, and I was intimidated by New York because it's such wow.
That city is something else.
Yeah,
right?
and I had actually never been there before. I just got hired and went out there, packed up my stuff and went.
Okay.
And I did that for a year, and I came back to the Bay Area, and the person I was in a relationship with got serious, and then I remember I just sort of felt a sense of inadequacy because I knew the path that I was going to take was very had no guarantees. Life of an actor is very, very hand to mouth, whatnot. And I had met somebody that I fell in love with, and I just didn't know. To be honest with you, I didn't know if I could keep this person around if I didn't make some changes, which is kind of sad.
In terms of your career.
Yeah, essentially, And she never asked me for it. She never said that's what you need to do. But I sort of felt,
It's a balance, right? Of like yourself and what you're meant to do here on this earth, and what you're called to do, and also a love relationship.
Yeah. And I'd never, to that point in my life, I never had those kinds of feelings for anybody. Mm-hmm. So I had certain conversations with myself, and I sort of negotiated with myself and made it okay to step away from that. But that's that boil I was talking about, right? Because the pilot light was never off.
Yeah.
It was on a low simmer.
Back there.
And so I started going into all these different directions, trying different things, doing different things. And so 16, 17 years later, now it's...
Now you have a show.
Yeah, but actually, now I have a show. But even prior to that, this is just to get me to the point where I finally said... So the point that the turnaround point for me was 2009, 2010. I was up late one night, and now Kenny, the things are going well for me in my business and so on and so forth. But I'm still feeling this
missing link,
vacuum.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
What is this? Something's not right. Yeah. And I kept flirting with the idea. Well, maybe I could just do a little acting here and there, and that was
get my fill.
What? Like, don't be stupid. You're too old for that. This, that, the other. Literally talking myself out of it.
The ego voice like that.
Talking myself out of it. And then this one night, we couldn't sleep. Got up and went online. I was looking at the New York Times entertainment section, and I saw the Tonys had just been taking place, and I saw a face pop out, and it just sent chills through me. I said, "Wait, I know that person." And sure enough, this guy that was sitting at the Tonys had been in a show that had been nominated for a Tony. And the cameraman caught him where he was just sitting down and he was just kind of looking like this. And when I looked at it, it was literally, Candy, like he was saying, "You should be here."
Isn't that
That's what it said to me.
Yeah.
And just so you know, this is somebody that I performed with in San Francisco. We've done several shows together. And then it was that moment, it's so much joy and excitement for him because of where his career had taken him. And then there was that self-reflection of, what are you doing?
Yeah, I could have been there.
Could have been there.
So was that the moment?
That was the moment. That was absolutely 100% the turnaround moment. And of course, there's, so then I, located an acting coach here in the Valley, Phoenix. And she happened to be one of few people here locally that actually had Broadway experience. Like, she performed on Broadway. So she was the real deal. Jean, she doesn't have a studio anymore. If I get the last name, but Jean, super sweet lady. And I met with her and I instantly knew this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I worked with her for 6 months, and I my purpose at the time was to get some monologues together, go out to back to New York. And I just wanted to just do some shows out there. And I actually ended up staying there a year. And I got out there, I forget what month it was, but within a couple, 2-3 weeks, I've been cast in a show.
Of course.
And then I did,
of course you did,
6 shows, in succession.
Nice.
I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, because I give myself a year. I said, what am I going to do? And then it was like, well, my daughter's here. I can't. And I've been going back and forth between Phoenix and New York to see her and bring her out and so on and so forth. I'm like, I can't stay here. This is not going to work. And I said, because no matter what I would accomplish would never compensate for that void of not being there for her. There's no way.
It's a responsibility.
So I said, Lord, this is on you. I'm going to go back. But I know you didn't bring me this far just
to go back.
To go back, literally, figuratively to go back, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go back. And so I came back, and it was really tough. That transition back into Phoenix was difficult because I tried to, connect with with theater companies and do things, and I just wasn't feeling it. The productions and stuff. And part of that, maybe it was ego. It was like, well, I just came from New York.
Ego.
What?
Yeah. I can get that.
Yeah, and it's a different vibe, New York has its own vibe, and so you come here, not knocking here, it's just a different thing, And I got an agent here, and I was doing commercials. Like, I don't want to do commercials. I don't care if the money's good. It's not
about the money.
It's not about the money.
But we have to make a living.
You have to.
We have to.
Eventually, it has to be about the money.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it wasn't. Yeah,
it's not.
No.
And it's about here.
It's about here. I need to feed my soul. Because remember, for 16, 17 years, I hadn't been doing that.
Yeah.
So I need to catch up. So I came back, and then I just said, I said, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in going out on calls. And I did book a national commercial and stuff. And that was great. And the checks were great. But I was like, that's not what I want to do, And so while I was in New York, actually, I had seen a one-man show.
Okay.
And this guy was talking about his family and his experience growing up in a Cuban / American family, and I had never seen anything like that. He would play different. He plays mom, plays dad, this, that, the other.
Oh, fun!
And I was like, I can do that. Like that, I can do. That spoke to me, and so while I was in New York, I started writing my autobiography because I needed to do that first before I started creating dialogue. So I started writing the autobiography. When I came back, I realized I hadn't been writing for a while. And I had this very clear moment one day. I went to yoga, and it was July 4th. I think it was 2013. And I came home and took a nap, woke up, and it was just clear as day that I needed to, because I was still grappling with what am I going to do here in Phoenix? How am I going to fulfill this passion I have? And it was very clear to me, a conversation that said, you need to write your own stories. You need to create stories of your own. So
then Black was born.
Not right away.
Oh.
So I finished the one-man show of my life. Okay. And then, I finished the autobiography. And then I wrote a one-man show based on my life. I sort of needed to do the autobiography first to have clear references and then take that and create dialogue. And so I wrote that show, and that took me about a year. Inside of a year, I wrote the one-man show. And I started marketing the show to theater companies, etc. Wasn't getting any success or feedback.
How is that? Like to give something like your all, right?
Yeah.
And then try to like sell it.
It's humbling.
And then you get told no.
But
it's
I think
keep going. How do you keep going?
Oh, good question.
I want to know that.
Your purpose. It's what you need to do. And so when you know it's what you need to do, somehow you find, I guess I would be like a long distance runner, running a marathon or running ultra marathons. How do you do it? Well,
mindset.
Mindset. It definitely is mindset. And I think when you already see the outcome, you know that these are just steps you have to go to get close to the outcome.
Yeah.
So the no's, I didn't take them personally.
Yeah, you can't. I mean,
it's like, okay, next.
One more no, right? You're that much closer to it. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think being in the business of sales, which I've been in throughout my life, sort of prepared me for that too, right? It's given me that Teflon resistance that no matter what you say, I'm still going to keep doing it. I'm going to find a way. Mm-hmm. So if it's not you, it's okay. I'll find somebody else. And I don't take it personally.
Yeah.
So therefore, I don't look at it in terms of my contribution is not good enough or the material. And I think as an artist, you have to be careful because we're conditioned to be, very in touch with our emotions and feelings, and that's where your creativity comes from. But you also have to be a bit more objective and not let somebody else's interpretation become your reality. Mm-hmm. It's just their interpretation.
Yeah.
Everybody is entitled to an opinion.
Of course.
Everybody's entitled to their perspective, but theirs doesn't have to be yours.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that helped me just keep going and figuring. And as you start to communicate with different people, they're giving you little leads, etc. So one thing becomes like a tree branch. You start with your one limb, and all of a sudden now you've got all these branches off of it. But I was watching a show, 60 Minutes, and it was talking about this new currency that was taking place in Africa based on cell phones and how they were bypassing banks. They were sharing money through an app that had been created. And I remember sitting there Sunday afternoon. I saw this guy, and he owned a cell phone business where he would repair cell phones and laptops, etc. And in this little rinky-dink marketplace, but yet still he's an entrepreneur,
In Africa.
And I'm looking, I'm thinking, like, I know this guy. Like, I didn't know him. But I look at him and I think, growing up in London, such a multicultural place, like I know who this guy is. Like, I know I can relate to him, you know? And then it hit me how different our circumstances are, but how similar our stories are.
We're all connected that way,
Exactly.
actually.
So that was the lightning bulb moment. It was like, oh, I need to do something with this. So then the title came to me first, Black. That was the title. And then it was a synopsis of 4 characters, each describing their experience growing up Black, but in different parts of the world. And so the first character was going to be from America. The second was going to be from England. The other is Jamaican and African. And essentially all they're going to do is just share their perspective of what their life has been like growing up Black, using that word and what it means to them. And then I started writing. And I wrote that inside of 6 weeks.
Wow, that's fast.
It's fast.
Were you writing night and day? What did the process look like?
So for me, it was, do what I need to do in the day, work, so on and so forth, yoga, come home, eat, take a nap, and then right around 10 o'clock, switch off the TV. And I would just sit. And eventually, the character would just tap me and say, okay, that's what I want to say. Because in that moment, it really wasn't me coming up with things to say. It was literally the character saying, this is what I want you to say. So I had, at that point, had become literally a vessel. Yeah. I could just be the vessel communicating this message. And going back to your earlier point, earlier on in my life, I would not have been able to do that because I wasn't open enough. I was so filled with my own presence that there was no room for anybody else. But these experiences, which have humbled me along the way, have put me in a place now where it's a point of surrender, and it's a point of, in order for me to create, and I have to step outside of my own way, get out my own way.
Do you think yoga helped you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah, I think we ran into each other a couple times at yoga.
Yeah.
And I think that I get so much clarity when I do yoga because your mind gets so quiet.
Absolutely.
That information just starts coming to you. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty amazing what bubbles up.
And the yoga journey for me has been, first of all, the practice is difficult. Mm-hmm. And some days you go in and you feel great, you have a great practice, and the next day you go in and it's not a great practice. And again, you just have to be like, okay, not today. Now, was yesterday's practice more meaningful than no? It's all part of the journey. Yeah. But you have to not get attached to having this great practice, right? Maybe today you didn't do any inversions. Is your practice based on inversions? No, it's based on being present and feeling those individual poses. Because at the end of the day, the payoff, you go through those poses so that it puts you to a place of surrender. So when you're in Shavasana, which for listeners who may not know what that is, that you lay on the ground.
It's like nap time.
They call a corpus pose, yeah.
Nap time.
But everything you've just done, everything you've broken down, now resets inside of you, right?
Yeah.
So it always blows my mind away when people take off before. I'm like, no, you're missing the best part. This is why you're here, So the yoga, absolutely, that's been an ongoing journey for me. I started practicing in 2009, and actually that was precipitated from an injury at the gym, where I had a pectoral tear, and I just needed some time off. And while I was healing, a friend of mine said, you should try yoga. She actually gifted me a package of yoga classes with a one-on-one private. And I did those, and I was like, oh,
Once again, right? Like the perfect person comes along the path.
Right.
Here, Michael,
Right.
you need this
Yeah,
yoga.
you need this. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'd done a couple experiences at the gym. I remember people chanting and humming. I'm like, oh, I don't know about
This is
this.
weird.
I don't know what this is, but no, I'm good. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
But then years later, in the right set of circumstances. But what was that? It wasn't that the practice had changed. I had changed.
Yes.
I was more open
Open.
to a different experience.
Yeah,
right?
it's all about being open to like whatever comes your way and the
Absolutely.
experiences.
Absolutely.
So-
So yeah, the yoga has been a huge part of this journey for me, and I think it's really helped me in terms of even reaching out to people, reaching out to companies, and trying to create alliances and partnerships when they don't see it. And I'm like, okay, it's okay, you'll see it eventually. You will, and that's not ego. That's just I know you'll see
Yes.
it.
Yeah, one day you'll realize
You'll see it. Yeah.
what you missed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, then we're talking again, but the number's gonna be different. There'll be some more zeros on it. When I have Kevin Hart money, it's gonna be different.
oh my God. I think that can even be true in relationships, Like one day you'll see.
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah. In the meanwhile, what are you gonna do? Curl up and die? No, you keep
No.
going.
Yeah.
No, you just keep going.
Keep one
Yeah.
foot in front of the
Yeah.
next, right?
So I wrote the show, and I actually reached out to a local theater company, and they actually featured me in a stage reading series, and they wanted to. Their vision was different than mine, so this was a critical moment for me because here I had created this show, and their vision was different than mine, and I was like, wow. On the one hand, this is a really well-known theater company. I want to mention them because I appreciate what they did, and I don't want to cast a negative light on them.
Yeah.
But it was a moment for me to say, do I want to do what they want me to do, or do I want to do what I think the piece deserves?
Yes.
And I had to sit with it for about a week. And
No,
then
but
one
you
day,
already know the answer.
I did know. I
already-
had to come to terms with it.
Yeah,
I had to come to
okay.
terms with turning that down didn't mean that I was making a mistake.
And faith.
And faith.
It just that moment was faith for
It
you.
was faith.
To stay in the faith of what you produced
Yes.
and what you wrote and
Yes.
what
Yes.
the mission for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, the lead for where I should go came from somebody in that theater company. He said, have you ever thought about fringe festivals? I said, I don't know what that is. What is a fringe festival? I said, well, it's independently produced shows that are done in various cities around the country. Started in Edinburgh, which is the birthplace of the Fringe Festival. And they still have it today. It's amazing. But essentially, you send a synopsis or your piece in, they review it. They're trying to create a mixed bag of shows that essentially over a measured period of time, so maybe a 2-week period, they're going to say, okay, all these theater companies are going to host these different events. And so what they're selling the public is for $10 or $5 or $15, whatever it is, whatever you want to charge, come and see this show. It's unfiltered, it's unjuried, it's raw. You're going to actually just see this person's production. And the variety of what they are going to be across the board. You might walk into some and be like, I don't know what just happened. And others, you're like, wow, this was amazing, So there's no guarantee what you're going to see. So I submitted it in faith to, I think, 5 or 6 different ones. Not quite sure what was going to happen. They all took it on. I was like, whoa.
I'm
They
onto
all
something
accepted
here.
it,
Yeah.
And I said, okay, now I guess I need to learn the lines. I need to learn the dialogue, etc. So my first show was actually in Asheville. January, so we're in 2018, so 2017, beginning of last year, my first show. Traveled to Asheville, didn't know anybody, and had my first show. And Candy, at the end of it, and I thought I had flubbed a couple things. Apparently, they didn't know.
Right. Well, they didn't know.
I had a standing ovation.
That feeling. Tell me about that feeling.
Is there something behind me? Like, what are you standing up for? And they're like, oh, this was, people outside. And I remember going outside. So I had a knock at the dressing room afterwards. And the lady said, oh, can you come outside? I said, did I leave something? Like, no, they want to meet you. I'm like, oh, they do? I went outside. This one girl's crying. Oh my gosh, this is such an important message. People need to hear this, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. And I had some what I call sisters, some black people out there. I'm like, uh-oh, what are sisters going to say? They're going to approve?
Well,
Brother,
yeah,
this
right.
was amazing, such an education. We support you, da-da-da-da. Next night, same thing, And then, so then
Were
I
you just
started,
overcome with emotion?
I don't really think at that point I understood what was happening.
Oh, you're just in the moment.
I was so thrilled at actually having just got through the material. I didn't even have the chance to process how it might affect somebody else, And then as I kept fulfilling these performance dates across the country, I started hearing the same reactions. Seattle, San Francisco, New York, all these places. This is amazing what you're doing, this, that, the other. You got
What a
it's
journey.
So important. When I wrote the show, it was really just a look at how different these four characters are, but how not different they are.
Right.
What I even didn't realize was how it became sort of a smaller look at the much larger picture, which is how those four characters were being identified with white people in the audience, Asian people in the audience, Indian people in the audience, black people in the audience. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what they were sharing, what these characters are sharing, are their life experiences.
And we all have it, no matter our race,
we all
right?
have it. And so there becomes the juxtaposition of the piece, because it's called Black, but it's really not about black people. It's about how similar we are and how our experiences are the same.
No matter.
And that if we can get to a place where we stop looking at people, I'm a black guy, this, that, the other, you're a white woman, blonde hair, etc. We couldn't look more diametrically opposed.
Right.
But we're so connected because of how much we care about each other, how much we love each other, and our stories, that has led us 16 years later, that I'm sitting here on your podcast, sharing my experiences in all this time I haven't seen you, and that only comes from a place of love.
Yeah.
When you reached out to me, I was like, absolutely.
We just pick up where we left off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're in this place where people are looking at things that are different from them and shunning it. And I think that those things need to be embraced. We need to give each other permission and to be open to having the conversations that need to be had, right? Somebody's different than you. You're curious about someone's experiences.
Yeah.
It's just their story. So share your story with me, because ultimately that's what I am. I'm a storyteller. I like telling stories. And I'm always interested in hearing other people's stories. So can we get to a place where we just hear each other's stories without judgment?
Without judgment. Yeah, that's the thing.
Just to hear it.
Yeah, and try to put yourself into the other person's shoes.
That's exactly right.
Because
that's
we're all
comes from.
Right. We're all doing the best we can with what we have, right?
But
in every instance.
Absolutely. But the moment you take on a position of, well, I'm up here and you're down there.
Yeah.
No.
Off balance.
No. Yeah. So as much as I have contributed to what's happening, it's done way more for me than the other way around. I mean, I've gone from a place of doing these friendship festivals to in Chicago, Phoenix, and now in LA, because I'm in LA doing the show.
Yeah.
Now I'm self-producing the show. Something I, again, never would have thought. Producer, what is that? I don't know how to spell it. What's producer? But
the money.
Yeah, exactly. But when the desire is there, and you've reached out to over 200 theater companies that turn you down, and you realize, well, how else am I going to do this? Well, I guess I have to find a venue and do it myself. Now you're a producer.
Yeah.
Not because you want it to be, but because you have to be. Because you have to get the message out.
You have to fulfill what you started.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Am I going to not do it because somebody said no? Sometimes you have to show the vision for people to get it.
Yeah.
When you're doing something different, not everybody's going to see it the same way you see it. That's why the vision came to you. So you put it out there. Mm-hmm. And then you let people, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what's been happening.
So what's next?
So I've got my show in LA closes. I've done a 6-week run. It's a 6-week run in LA that closes this Sunday, October 14th. And I've literally been coming back and forth between Phoenix and LA. It's been amazing. And then I'm doing a second encore show here in Phoenix at the Tempe Center for the Arts.
Oh.
November 2nd and 3rd.
Okay.
So just a few weeks away.
Perfect.
7 p.m. And there's been some improvements. So when I first started the show, it was just me and the characters speaking. And when I wrote it, I always had visuals in mind of creating a montage of images that would precipitate each character coming out on stage. Sort of take you, here's where we're taking you. We're taking you to Africa. We're taking you to Jamaica. We're taking you to America. So recently, again, through divine intervention, a guy from yoga who I met from yoga.
You're right.
He's a TV producer. His son creates video and all that. So they filmed my show in Phoenix. I went back to them and they helped. We collaborated together. They created the new montage images. So now I have a video sequence that goes alongside the show. And then as the characters are speaking, there's certain things that come up on the screen also. So that's going to be highlighted here in Phoenix, which wasn't a year ago, because I did it here September 2nd and 3rd last year, Labor Day weekend, and it was just me speaking. So now I have this element to add to it, which really takes it to a whole different level.
Yes.
And then I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do, which is after the show, I want to do a Q&A. So I'm going to ask and invite any members of the audience who have seen the show. In that moment, right after they've experienced it, I'll come back on stage, and for 15 to 20 minutes, ask me any questions you want.
How fun.
About the show,
Engagement.
the experience. Yeah, because that's the most appropriate time to start the conversation. And my thing is, I never ever want to create any productions that necessarily have a conclusion. My mantra is to inspire thought, ignite creative thinking, and provoke dialogue.
Yeah.
Everything I do has to fall within those 3 parameters. That's it. And so I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I just want to show you a different perspective. That's all.
Is that your big why?
That's the big why.
Yeah.
You know, that and the fact that I was getting frustrated because I said, well, why am I not seeing these stories? And why am I not seeing these stories? And the big why came from, because you're supposed to do it. If you're not seeing what you want to see,
then
create
do it. Yeah.
Stop talking about it. You have no reason, you have no right to complain about something if you don't want to be a part of the solution, not the problem. Anybody can sit back and point out and say, well, that's wrong and that's wrong. Okay, good. Why don't you fix it?
Yeah, what are you doing about it?
Or give me your interpretation. Instead of just sitting here judging somebody else's actions, why don't you do something to contribute towards the solution? So this is my contribution. So since then, I've been writing other projects. I've written a few other plays. I actually am in the process of writing a TV pilot. Well, actually going beyond the pilot. Now I'm writing the first season of a TV show. So those are these projects that I have lined up so that when the time's right, I can press play, go.
How do I get press play?
It's going to happen. And I know these are going to happen. It's just a question of timing, right? Until then, I don't sit and hold on to this stuff. You have to understand, for 16 years and maybe even longer, I had all this stuff inside of me. And so it took a moment for me to give myself permission to say, well, why are you not a writer? Why can't you write? It's just that mental thing. It's like you said, it's that runner, ultra runner. It's in the head. Mm-hmm. So once I gave myself permission, the floodgates open, because I've always been a reader. I've always enjoyed books and reading, and I've always enjoyed visualizing things as I read.
What do you read?
Visual. I love biographies.
Okay.
I just finished. I'm reading a book now on Warren Litfield, who was an NBC producer for years, and he's talking about how they created the Thursday must-see TV lineup, and all the stuff happened behind the scenes. But lately I've been reading a lot of biographies to do with people, and not necessarily famous people. I just go to Barnes & Noble and something speaks to me and I grab it. But a lot to do with people who have overcome traumatic circumstances and experiences, whether it's racially motivated, personally motivated. Mm-hmm. I love the story of, what did you do that made a difference? What was that turnaround factor for you, right? Why were you in this place to begin with, and now you're here? There's a common denominator, whether it's business, personal, emotional, relational. There's always some turning point. There's an event that takes place that this person decides, no, that's not how I want it to be. And I know it exists in me because I'm doing it. It exists in you because you're doing it, right? But when you read somebody else's story, it just inspires you. You're like, okay, I'm on the right track.
Yep.
I'm on the right track. I'm just hearing it a different tone.
Yeah.
It's a different instrument, but it's still music. Because we're all music. We're all making music.
We're all energy.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So that fuels me. And the more that I read other people's stories, the more it sort of reinforces my own and the stories I want to share and tell.
I love that you want to make such an impact in the community and in the world.
Thank you. My struggle initially, though, Kandi, was, especially doing the one-man show, was, it's a bit of a narcissist, right? Why am I going to stand out on stage and have people looking at me? Again, moment of clarity. God said, no, it's not about you. Can you stop forgetting about you for a minute?
It's the 4 characters.
It's not about you. Yeah. It's about them.
Yeah.
You're working for them. They've employed you to tell their story.
Yeah.
Oh. All of a sudden now, I no longer look at it as a personal thing. I'm just a hired actor. I also happen to be the person that was
hired
there.
Yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So I work for them. So I always have to make sure that before every show, there's a certain ritual I go through.
Oh, tell me. Can you share?
Essentially, it's a moment of asking them to be present. ask him for their guidance and their words and their actions and their physical manifestations to become me in that moment, so that I can serve their truth. That's what it's about for me.
Do you think we as humans are capable of manifesting exactly what we want in our lives?
I do think so.
Yeah.
I do think. When you look at the things that people have accomplished, when you look at the lives that people lead after serving in our country, coming back, disabled, lost limbs, etc., go on to run marathons, go on to lead full lives, overcome personal trauma. People who were born in incredibly abusive family situations and end up becoming successful,
amazing,
inspiring people that give back to others, all these different things happening. When you think of what the 24-hour day cycle and what some people are able to accomplish in 24 hours versus others, come on. We're as a species, we're capable of so much, and we are doing that. And so I think there's not very much room for excuses, personal excuses. My thing is, as somebody who's taken on this path of his journey later on in life, is also to say, okay, if you're in your late 40s or whatnot and you want to go play basketball professionally, may not happen. May not happen.
You could still try.
But there's something there. There's something that I think you can find that will still satisfy you in the same way. And maybe you end up coaching, or who knows? I don't know. Yeah. But I think sometimes we tell ourselves these stories and convince ourselves that we're in this box and we don't know how to get out. And my thing is, no, you got to break that box down and
you just recreate the story.
Absolutely.
What do you want it to look like?
What do you want it to look like? Yeah. Like what you're doing. I mean, like I said, when we first met, I was running a restaurant and you were
I was a hairstylist.
You were a hairstylist.
Yeah.
And now you're selling real estate and I'm telling stories.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, we're still in the business of serving others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We're just doing it in a different way.
Yeah.
And so that's been a revelation for me, is there's certain aspects that I'm not really comfortable with, like the social media thing. I do it because you have to promote, but I don't like to spend a lot of time on it, this, that, the other. And it's something I need to get better at. But I realize, okay, and some people are amazing. They have hundreds, thousands of followers, I say to myself, but I tell my stories in a different way. I tell them in the theater. That's where I want to tell my stories. And some other people tell their stories online. It doesn't matter how you tell it. Just do it your own way, because that's what makes us different. That's the part that needs to be celebrated, is the fact that we are different.
But we're all the same.
But we have different ways of expressing ourselves. Yeah. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah. Gosh, so amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's exciting. I don't know what the future holds. I kind of do, but I have to be, humble and surrender, because I don't want to create this image that it only looks like this and it could be way better. Because most of the times that's what happens. It turns out being much better.
Yeah.
But I do know that a door's been opened.
Oh, good.
And I know that once that door opens and once that revelation comes to you, there ain't no turning back.
No, you got to step through the threshold.
There's just no way.
Yeah.
That's like you going back to the old Kandis. It's never going to happen, Yeah. So I'm excited. And I'm really excited to share the show here again in Phoenix.
Oh,
and
good.
Hopefully you'll be here.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm excited for, I'm also excited for that conversation, just to hear what people's thoughts are in that moment, viscerally, right after they've seen it, whether they agree or disagree, just to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with anybody asking me anything they want to ask me about the process or why or how or, But I hope that the show just allows a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's
what we need more.
Yeah,
between us all. This conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hence the reason I'm having this podcast.
We're here.
Look at
Amazing.
this. Yeah.
Love it.
I didn't even know what would come today.
We had nothing planned, right?
No.
Like we were talking about, I'm like, I don't know. Let's talk about the show.
I kind of live life like that. I'm like, whatever comes and whatever happens, I just stay open to it.
Absolutely.
And with a smile. And
and I'm so proud of you. I am. I'm really proud of what you're doing. And
you're so
you've
sweet.
always been, you've always cared about your clients. I know that. I remember you guys had lines at the door with people coming to you, That
was fun those days.
And I'm sure it's the same thing in your current business now. But
I'm very
this is cool, because this shares so much more with people in the community.
Right.
And, gets them out there and maybe they're offering something that somebody else needs, and that's cool.
Yeah. I knew you were doing something inspiring and I wanted to share it.
Thank you.
I want people to hear your message, and I think you're amazing, and you inspire me.
Oh,
And so thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story and,
Yeah.
and sparking conversations.
well,
Across the
I never had a
world.
problem talking.
Yeah.
I talk to a brick wall, so that's not the problem. But
Yeah.
it's just fun to, and to be honest with you, a lot of times I don't even realize what's happening. Like at the end of every performance, I go outside and I greet the attendants, the attendees, and it's those moments that I realize the impact that it's had. Those comments and those hugs,
And that's the thing. That's only like a portion of what you're really impacting,
right.
right? The unknown
Yeah.
impact is
Still to come.
well, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Like it's
I'm glad you said that because a couple things happened. My daughter said to me a couple of days ago. She said, "How many people do you think you performed in front of?" I said, "Since last year, over 1,000, maybe more, because there are a variety of different small venues, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And then I had this revelation. I said, "Wait a minute!" I said, "This is like the first show that I've actually produced and done. This is the beginning."
Yeah.
I mean, if this is what the beginning is.
Amazing.
And then I just have this moment of just fulfillment,
Yeah.
because if I'm trucking along at my own pace with my own, with my small little crew of people supporting me and helping me get along, and this is what the beginning looks like, I mean,
You're in for a ride.
buckle up.
Buckle up.
There's more to come.
Well, you said you've been on a bumpy ride.
Yeah, I
That's all-
have, yeah. Buckle up. More to
Yeah,
come.
buckle up.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thanks for
Thank you.
being on.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it and found value. Please feel free to subscribe, and I hope you tune back and we'll have more to come.